Hi, I'm Emil Guillermo on the PETA Podcast. This week we're doing something a little different. For the first time in PETA's 45-year history, a new president has been named. Her name? Tracy Reiman. And here she is in conversation with her longtime colleague, Lisa Lange.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Lange, PETA's Senior Vice President of Communications. And since 1992, I've worked with Tracy Reiman, PETA's new president. I know her as a sensitive, no-nonsense activist, and I'd like you to know her too. Here are some snippets from a recent conversation that I had with her that I think you'll enjoy. How are you feeling about the future of PETA, of animal rights in general? Are you feeling good, optimistic? Are you feeling despair?
Well, we have a lot of work to do, and there is a lot of cruelty that we learn about every single day. But every day, too, we're achieving victories and we're making progress, and we're an army of the kind, more than 10 million strong. And that's growing. And I really believe that the more people know, the more they want to change. One of the things that I'm going to bring to this position is a bigger focus on youth marketing and social media, because social media is a window to the world of suffering that is hidden behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm.
And we see the numbers on social media, millions, tens of millions of people watching this stuff. And so I know that as long as we're able to continue to show them what happens to animals in all of these industries, they're changing. They may fight it at first because they have to change, and nobody wants to really change. You want to just keep doing what they're doing. But they are changing, and we're doing our best to make it easy. We always tell people what the alternative is. And so I am incredibly optimistic that we're moving this along quickly for the animals.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the campaigns over the last 30 years that you've been involved in, maybe those that you're proudest of?
Well, I have been thinking about this a lot because it's our 45th anniversary, and I just think back to those early days when people thought it was crazy not to eat turkey on Thanksgiving, and I remember doing radio interviews. That's how we got the message out back then, from morning till night for weeks leading up to Thanksgiving, talking about this issue. And now, of course, today, everybody has a vegan show up for Thanksgiving. General Motors was using animals, ferrets and pigs, in car crash tests. And I think when we won that campaign, it was a real milestone, pushing Calvin Klein to stop selling fur. He was the first major designer to do that and really paving the way for everybody else, essentially. Shutting down Ringling Brothers was probably one of the biggest.
Yep.
My son, who is amazingly 22 years old now and has been out there protesting with me since he was 4 weeks old in a baby carrier outside KFC, spent many years protesting with me outside Ringling Brothers. And what an incredible lesson for him to be standing out there, speaking out for elephants who are beaten and forced to perform year after year, and then see it stop. The lesson is priceless.
Incredible.
Another personal story there. My son, when he was in high school, was going to be pushed to dissect. He didn't want to. And the obstinance of his biology teachers, what really made me think we need an alternative that they'll use, because they're so stuck on using this archaic method. So we'll bring them something that allows them to continue to do the hands-on work. And we've created a silicone frog model that has no formaldehyde and no cruelty. It's called the Kind Frog. And last year, we had over 100 teachers in a pilot program, over 10,000 students who use the Kind Frog instead of a once living, breathing frog. And we've got a section of our PETA Kids website where parents can learn about how to talk to their kids and how to help their kids be vegan. And they can order stickers and comic books and coloring books and all sorts of things to learn about animals so that they can have a better understanding of who they are and how they feel.
Yeah. All animals have their own interests. They feel love. They feel terror when they're being abused. They suffer. And you saw the suffering up close and personally when you did your own investigation several years ago. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
That was a real defining moment for me, actually, in that we had got word that there was 180,000 chickens starving on a free-range factory farm in North Carolina, and I went down there and spent several days trying to get feed for these birds. I watched thousands of them die before my eyes. And one moment I was looking in through the screen of one of the farms, and a lone chicken was staring at me, and I couldn't save her. And I knew then that I would dedicate myself to helping these birds. And, this humane washing nonsense, this was supposedly a free-range farm. It was basically a giant shed, and there was a little hole cut in the side of it. And, of course, the chickens never went out there. It was a tiny dirt patch. And I think the meat industry is so desperate to sell people on meat, knowing what we've been exposing, that they will say that it's humane or certified or responsible or whatever, cage-free, pasture-raised. None of this means anything. These are factory-farmed animals who live almost exactly the same way as other animals. It is a marketing ploy. And this is definitely one of the focuses of my work and of our work going forward, is to stop companies from making these claims, because we know that people, if they really knew that it wasn't true, and we see this because we interview them outside Whole Foods, then they won't buy meat at all. And so we need to really push this forward even more.
So many people still don't understand, because of deceptive marketing, like you just mentioned, that wool isn't just a haircut, to borrow a phrase I've heard you use.
Yeah, over 150 shearing sheds and operations we've been to around the world. And every single one, we see the exact same thing. These workers are punching, kicking, twisting the necks of, throwing these sheep down chutes, and cutting them to shreds with their shearing. And then they just sew them up right there on the shearing floor with a needle and thread and no pain relief or anything. And then when they don't produce enough wool to be profitable, those sheep are sent to the same slaughterhouses and killed in horrific ways. So it's not just a haircut, it's cruelty at every turn. And we really urge people to buy alternatives. They're everywhere. I think most people go into a store and they want a nice sweater. They don't care what it's made of. They just want it to look good. They want it to be comfortable. They want it to last. And the alternatives are out there, and they do all of that.
It's just funny, the excuses people use. Well, wool, we've always worn it to keep warm. And I'm like, you'll be all right without it.
Exactly. Tradition doesn't justify cruelty. So, yes.
It's also just so silly. And that kind of leads me to my next thought, in that PETA has a real sense of fun. Like, you and I have done a lot of this silly stuff together over the last 34 years.
Yeah, I'm just remembering when we went on the Crispy Carrot tour. Crispy Carrot is a 7-foot-tall dancing carrot. This was back in the 90s, I think. And we went to elementary schools with Crispy Carrot, who said, "Eat your veggies, not your friends." And it was supposed to be a fun way to bring attention to the animals. But in one case, we were chased down and had bologna thrown at us. And another one, we were here in LA, actually. We went to an elementary school, as you'll recall. And CNN was with us. And the CNN reporter asked one of the kids, "Do you like vegetables?" And he said, "Yes." And she said, "Can you name one you like?" And he said, "Chicken." We thought, oh, Lord, we've got our work cut out for us.
If we could create a blooper reel for the things we've done. I specifically am remembering that you and I believe we're in Chicago together. We were protesting at a big meat conference, and an activist chained themselves to the door, and they just used another door. And so he sat there chained to the door, and we didn't have a way to get him undone. So we had to run and go get the bolt cutters. But it's also like when we, for some reason, the Rose Parade in Pasadena made the idiotic decision to have a SeaWorld float in 2014. And we ran out and blocked the float, and it was a huge day, and we were really able to get the message out. But I remember I ran out and you were behind me, and all of a sudden I saw you just fall to the ground and flop around in some odd manner. And I remember thinking, that was not part of this plan. What is going on?
Well, unfortunately, when I went under the barricade to go out and block the float, I dislocated my shoulder. So I was actually just trying to pop my shoulder back into socket, but I was able to get it back in and then block the float. And of course, we were arrested and taken away, but it was a huge success. We were able to reach so many people about SeaWorld, and we had dozens of people all along the whole parade route with signs that were condemning SeaWorld. And of course, now SeaWorld is no longer able to breed their orcas. So these will be the last ever orcas in captivity in America. And that's a huge progress. And of course, we continue to work on dolphins and hope to see the same thing happen for them, and really urging parents, don't go to SeaWorld. There's so many other things. You can go to museums, you can take a walk in nature, visit a park, so many things you can do without participating in these sorts of cruelties.
Yeah, it's so easy. That's the thing that always strikes me. It's just so easy to do the right thing. Just don't pay money to hurt animals, find something else to do.
I mean, Lisa, like when we first started at PETA, in order to get a veggie burger, we had to mix powder with water. When people say, oh, I couldn't be vegan, they have no idea what they're talking about.
No.
There are so many amazing vegan options out there today, from faux fish to veggie chicken to just eggs and all sorts of vegan cheeses that are creamy and delicious. It's all there if you're open to it. And our job is to help you get there.
We all hold so much power, right? My thing recently, too, is just making sure whenever I'm out, there's an ice cream shop. I pop into every ice cream shop and go, what kind of vegan ice cream do you have? And I do not accept sorbet as an answer, FYI.
Exactly.
So there are tons of little things everyone can do every day that make a massive difference. No matter how busy you are, you have another full-time job, you have a family you're looking after, you might have an elderly parent. So what can those people do?
Well, I mean, if you don't have time to protest, and we encourage everybody to do that and join our action team so that you can learn about these things. In every single aspect of your life, there are things that you can do to help animals. And that is buying cruelty-free products. And we have a list where you can check to see if it's cruelty-free. Buying vegan products, trying new vegan products. They're in every single grocery store in America. You just have to look for them. They're in the freezer section or in the veggie section. You can look for the little label that says that your shoes or your jacket are not leather, but some innovative material like mushroom or apple or all these wonderful new things that are available today. You can choose to go to a movie and not to the circus. You can give free vegan food to people who wouldn't ordinarily try it. You can leave vegan starter kits at doctor's offices or in little free libraries. You can talk to store managers about offering more vegan products. You can share and comment on social media posts that are about animal issues, because your voice really counts in those situations. Talk to anyone everywhere about animals. If you see somebody pulling on their dog's leash, ask them not to. That hurts their neck. When you see somebody who's afraid of a coyote, you can talk to them about the fact that the coyote is more afraid of them than they are of the coyote. There are so many ways that you can use your skills or your talents or your connections to speak out for animals, and we are here to help.
Over the last 30 plus years, what have you seen in terms of the changes in the way we've campaigned? The world has changed with the advent of social media. So what have we had to do to adjust so that people continue to hear us when there's so much else going on?
Yeah, I mean, it used to be we would have to campaign hard for 2 years to get a victory. Now it's sometimes we don't even announce a campaign and we win it. But back then, we would have to do all kinds of things. And I remember once, a national reporter once told us, if you're not scaling a building or setting something on fire, don't bother calling. And that was really the mentality that led us to start taking off our clothes and doing the we'd rather go naked than wear fur, or doing civil disobedience and pulling quirky stunts. But, I feel like we don't really have to resort to these things as much anymore. When we launch a campaign, when we release a new undercover investigation and send it to companies, they come calling. They don't want PETA to expose them. And we push them very hard. And I think a lot of these companies respect us for that. They may fear us, but they do respect us. And they do call and they do talk to us, even if they don't admit it publicly, which many of them don't. And we do have pretty good relationships with most of the major retail companies and cosmetic companies and all the other companies out there, pushing them to make changes to reduce and stop the use of animals for all kinds of things.
You're talking about the corporate world a little bit, which I think is one of the things that people find surprising about us because they see the high profile, like you said, the naked campaign, the protests, that kind of thing, the very visual celebrity campaigns, all of that. But what a lot of folks don't know is what goes on behind the scenes. What are some of the things that we've achieved by talking directly to corporations?
Well, one great example is with H&M. After an undercover investigation exposed cruel treatment of ducks and geese for down, we went to the company, as we always do. We always go to the companies behind the scenes to let them know about the suffering that we've uncovered. And if they do nothing, then they get publicly slammed for it. And with H&M, we had been working with them, and we did a partnership with them where they used flour down and other wonderful vegan materials, and yet they still didn't do what needed to be done, which is stop using down. So we did launch a campaign against them, and for several months, we were outside their stores, we were outside their shareholder meeting, we spoke inside their shareholder meeting, we still had conversations with their corporate team, and ultimately, through those conversations, they agreed to stop using all new down. And they're one of the first companies in the world to actually do that. And they're one of the largest clothing retailers in the world. So we have a multi-pronged approach in everything that we do. Some of it the public doesn't ever see or hear about, and that's fine. It takes all types of actions in order to push these companies. But they listen and they change, and we're seeing it more and more every day.
Yeah, and as you were talking about that, I was thinking about how we spent a couple of years working on Starbucks and how that was a company that really dug its heels in.
Yes, Starbucks was charging 80 cents more for vegan milks, which is penalizing kind consumers from choosing the cruelty-free option. And it was a hard-fought campaign, 2 years. We had to get kind of creative. So we had people who were protesting inside the stores. We had people outside the store showing video of calves being torn from their mothers for the dairy milk that people were drinking instead. We had billboards. We had Sir Paul McCartney featured on a billboard and writing a letter. James Cromwell even superglued his hand to a Starbucks counter and refused to leave in protest. And eventually they capitulated. And not long after, we saw the other largest coffee chains in America, Peet's and Dunkin', follow suit. So this was a hard-fought one campaign, and it will save a lot of cows.
Mm-hmm.
You know, PETA is the powerhouse it is because of Ingrid's willingness to take positions that are not always popular, but always right, to push the envelope, to put herself in uncomfortable positions. And I think that gave me and all of us the courage to do the same. And I hope that it will give everybody the courage to do the same in every aspect of their life. Never miss an opportunity. We always say, never be silent. Never be silent when there's something you can say or do that will help an animal.
To wrap it up a little bit, who is the person, living or dead, who you admire the most and why?
Well, I have to say Ingrid because it's true. I mean, she put animal rights on the map when no one was thinking about it and has grown this organization into the powerhouse that it is because of her fearlessness. And I've learned so much from her through all these years about how to be bold, about how to be unafraid, you know, how to put yourself out there. I mean, I'm not a confrontational person, which is funny since I'm actually have made a career out of being confrontational. I learned that from her, that this isn't about me. This isn't about how I feel. It's about the animals and changing the world. And she has really helped me, and I'm sure all of us. I mean, this is why we have more than 30% of our staff who have been at PETA for over 10 years. I think that speaks volumes about her and her leadership and the people listening and working with her.
You know, I remember there's so many Ingridisms that I'll remember for my entire life. But
true.
one of them was when in our infancy, people were like, you can't go after dairy. You can't go after people eating fish. People aren't ready. And she said, people may not be ready, but the animals are.
Another Ingridism that I love and that has also helped me is that she says, if you always succeed, you're not trying hard enough, which is great because we try all kinds of things and sometimes they don't work. And that's okay. You know, it's better to have tried than not have tried at all. So I always think about that too.
This has been really fun. And to bring it to a close, my final question is, If you could say just one thing to the world, what would that be?
Every animal is someone.
That sums it up.
Yeah.
And that was the new president of PETA, Tracy Reiman, in conversation with her longtime colleague, Lisa Lange. Both have been on the PETA podcast prior on a variety of subjects, and now this special conversation about Tracy's appointment as just the second president in PETA history, taking over for Ingrid Newkirk, who moves into the new position of PETA principal. And that's our show for today. More next time on the PETA podcast with Emil Guillermo.